Now then, so we got patch 10.9, so we got another 6 factions, 6 decks. Now, if you've never watched one of these before, I'm going to go over a deck for each faction that has kind of caught my eye, and I like the look of, and something I kind of want to play. And the whole kind of point of this video is that it's not like a meta snapshot. I don't think they're the best decks for each faction, but they're sort of here as a, give you some ideas on patch day in effect, because if you're not someone who either enjoys or does a lot of deck building, it can sometimes be hard to try some of the new stuff. Now for this patch, it's I don't know what to think about this patch because they've basically done a complete rehaul of soldiers for Nilfgaard and done quite a few changes to Deathwish, and they're the sort of main part of it, and I need to try those out before I can say for sure whether they work. In terms of the balance patches, I think the change to Field Experiment was pretty good. Honestly, I think it probably just needed putting back to 5 provisions, so you can't get it off of the crime that lets you get a 4 provision fee. I can't remember, but that's kind of the main issue with that syndicate deck, basically, is that you can get so many field experiments. It's not so much the cost of using it. I mean, it's a good nerf, but I don't think it addresses the issue. But I mean, we'll see. I could be wrong. We will see. But that's not the point of this video. Also, the Alyssa change, I absolutely hate. I think it hits the wrong thing. Basically, the problem with the Vanadane and Simless thing, Alyssa is a part of that. But Alyssa as a card in a vacuum isn't a problem. So if you're going to hit that combo with a provision nerf, then put a provision on Vanadane or put a provision on Simless that hit Alyssa, which is used in other decks that are perfectly fine. But apart from that, it's kind of whatever. So yeah, we'll go into the decks. So to kick us off, we have monsters. Now this is the sort of first of the 2 reworked, in effect, factions, archetypes, and Deathwish. I mean, I am not holding out much hope for this one. Unfortunately, some of the problems with Deathwish are kind of inherent in the design of how Deathwish works. But there was enough changes for me to be like, okay, I will come back to it. We'll see if it's any good. Mainly it was the bronzes, saw a lot of changes, few cards reworked, that kind of thing. And I mean, this kind of deck shouldn't need too much explanation. In round 1, we're looking to play that Brewess Ritual. If we're on blue coin, we can use our stratagem to trigger it. We have a buyer to trigger it. And this will absolutely pour out bronze Deathwish cards. So it'll pour out things like Let the Siren, Let the Rot Fiend, so on, so on, so on. And I mean, Siren's a pretty interesting change because it's both a consumer and has a Deathwish, which kind of helps for that cycling through them in effect. We also have Hybrid, which has been changed. This is now a consume, but if you don't need the consume, if a unit was destroyed during this turn, it boosts up by 5. So you can play it on the melee as a 9. 9 for 4 is very, very good. And yeah, we've got the Giant Toads in there for triggering Deathwish, and Araka's Queen with Dettlaff, and Haunt. Yeah, lots of fun stuff going on here. I think Giant Toad, I do like that change, that when you play it on the range row, it gives you that control over whether you want to trigger it or not. Whereas before, it was, if you play Deathwish, Giant Toad triggers it. There may be reasons why you don't want to. Maybe you have a fire in your hand. Maybe you play Dettlaff, you don't want your Dettlaff consumed, or, something like that. So yeah, some interesting changes, and we'll definitely see how it gets on. But as I say, not terribly hopeful for this one, but we will see regardless. So for Nilfgaard, we've actually got a bit of a first. We have 2 decks, mainly because I could not choose between the 2 of them which one I wanted to show to you all, because I want to play both. So I may as well show you both, so I guess it's 6 factions, 7 decks this week, but we'll breeze past that, pretend it fits in the theme. So the first one we have is Renfrey Imperial Formation, Soldiers, Tris Meteor kind of thing, and we also have an Enslave 6 list. So first starting with the Tris Soldiers list, we're using a lot of the new cards. I won't go over what all of the sort of changed cards do because there's been a huge amount of changes. So things that have been changes: Spotter, Slave Driver, Albrick. There's been a lot of changes. I would advise you read the patch notes because there's been a lot of changes. But the idea here is we have a lot of high-powered stuff. I actually chucked in a profit because A, it's 8 power, and B, locking something in your opponent's hand isn't terrible. And I didn't know what to put in the 7 provision slot. And it also kind of became a Renfrey deck because I just was putting it together and then I kind of realised we didn't want any specials or anything like that. So I thought, may as well just go Renfrey. So in terms of what we're actually doing, we're dumping down a lot of soldiers, basically. We've not gone incredibly heavy on the soldiers. There are a lot of new soldier cards that are very interesting that I will sort of want to have a look at, but this is the direction I went with it. So the general idea is, so cards like Spotter, for example, this now has the order that you can look at cards in your deck up to the amount of armor and give yourself vitality equal to its power. If it's a bronze soldier, boost self by that amount. And because we're running Tortoises and Nilfgaard Knight, that means that Spotter pretty consistently is going to play for like 11 or 12. And then the general idea is same as always with Tris Meteor. We want to stack up that front row with really high powered units, which is why we have Nilfgaard Knights. We have Illusionists to get stuff out of opponent's deck. And hopefully that's a huge amount of points. We're also running Damien because why would we not run Damien? Kind of funny, just reset the leader. We'll see how that goes. And obviously Ramon, so we can get another soldier. Now, another card I wanted to talk about is also a Slave Driver. So this is damages a unit by 1 and spawns a 1 power copy. If it's a soldier, you spawn and play the copy instead. So basically you can do this onto, say, a Nilfgaardian Knight, which will, boost it, drop down another 8. Just ready for your Tris Meteor, stack up a load of 8s on the road. And finally we have Vicar of Novices and Albrick. So the sort of reason for this is Albrick now, when it's moved to the top of your deck, it boosts a random allied unit by 2 and boosts itself by 2. So we can play, when we have Albrick in hand, Vicar of Novice draws a card, puts the card back on top of your deck. So kind of the perfect world with this is you have Albrick in hand, you play the Vicar of Novice, you draw your card, put Albrick back on top of your deck, you play the second Novice, put Albrick back on top of your deck. All of a sudden, Albrick is now 8, he's boosted everything by 4 already on the board, and it's not too bad. You could really go all in on this and play it in something like a Hyperthiny kind of deck or something like that, but it's a combo that I wanted to try out. Whether it makes sense for this deck, I'm not too sure, but we shall see. And then for the Enslaved deck, we have a massive amount of tactics, and this is kind of benefited by a few cards. So Ardal benefits, he's been buffed, so he's got another 2 points on top in effect of what he can bounce. We're running 12 tactics, so Ardal can bounce a 14, which is basically any unit on the board he can bounce back pretty easily. Stefan has been changed, so he spawns and plays Ace Up the Sleeve for every 3 tactics in your starting deck. So you'll spawn 4 of these, and they deal 2 damage each, which isn't bad. He's a 5 that deals 8, sort of split between targets wherever you want. But the fact that each one of these is a tactic, and we're running things like Hefty Helga and Fire Scorpion, means that this could be kind of stupid. He could basically be playing for like 21 if Hefty Helga stays on the board, which is kind of nuts. Also, a really interesting one, and I can't believe this has been added, is Magna Division. It's play a tactic from hand, draw a card, which basically means that they're now playing like Meners for 5 provisions, so it allows us to cycle through our deck a lot faster. We also have Fair Cart, because we're going to run Artaud to give stuff spying. So Fair Cart will give stuff spying, and also, if you aren't aware, when you see something with your leader ability, it gives that spying as well. So when you see something off your opponent, it gets spying. Artaud's pretty happy. And that's kind of it. We're just running a huge amount of tactics. We'll very effectively be able to deal with our opponent's board because we have double assassination, double tourney joust. We have treason. Treason's another way to get spying. It gives spying to the enemy unit you target. We've also got remedy to steal stuff. We've got bribery. We just have a million different tools. We're looking to just shut down their board and then have some really big point players with Artaud, Stefan, and Hefty Helga, that kind of thing. So yeah, Nilfgaard's got some interesting stuff, and I kind of like that it's been changed because now, I mean, my problem with Nilfgaard was it was basically you played a simulate or you lost. By and large, there wasn't really anything else worth playing. But I think this stuff, I'll have to try it to, say whether it's good or not. But, it opens the doors for maybe there's other ways to go in Nilfgaard. Maybe you don't just have to be pigeonholed into double cross, Artaud, Brathens, blah, 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 the usual kind of thing. So it could be very interesting. NR's a weird one because by and large, Knight's got a mini buff and a mini nerf, so nothing's really changed. So I thought I'd try a deck that I didn't really get a chance to try last patch, which is Foltest's Gang, in effect. So if you play Commanders, you know how this kind of deck works is you play your Foltest, you play Blue Stripes to shuffle loads of copies into your deck, and then order them all out on the board. Then you Pavetta to put them all back in your deck, and you do it again. Would you believe it? It's a pretty effective strategy, and it's been around for a while. But the difference is this is a Renfrey version, and I know people had success with this last season. So the idea is you have like Operator, so you can get the Renfrey's Gang, and Foltest to put all the Renfrey's Gang in your deck, and what's better than summoning 4 power units that have orders and can be a bit sketchy? You can just summon 6 power units. It's pretty nice. Yeah, I just did not get a chance to play this last season. It looked very, very interesting. I think the only difference I made from the deck people were running was some people running Geralt. I chucked in a Rune Mage because consistency on Renfrey, better in round 1 as kind of a points kind of card. But yeah, that's the general idea of the deck, is you have ways to get lots of Renfrey's Gang into your deck, and then sort of pay off in the later rounds in the form of Voimir, Triss Meteor Shower, Erland, or carryover to boost them all up in your deck, all that kind of thing. So it's a very sort of 2-round kind of deck is the general plan, so that you can use round 1 to just pile out all of these Renfrey's Gang into your deck and then summon them all out later. So it's very interesting kind of archetype, and it's something I kind of wanted to try. So, I mean, I won't go over how to play it right now because there's a lot of like complexities, but the general idea is the way you're going to ensure that you find your Renfrey's Gang, because you are running things like Aeromancy or AA like you would in Commanders, where you'd have a bit more consistency on finding them in that round 3, is you have things like Cintrian Envoy to put 1 on top, so then you can Istrid to draw it into hand. You've got Triss Butterflies. Renfrey can also give you the leader ability of play a bronze and draw a card of your choice, which is why I ran Room Mage, want more consistency finding that. And that's the general idea. We're also running this in pincer maneuver because it kind of makes sense that you can consistently find Poltest, Donomir, and your Blue Stripe Scouts in round 1. So that's the sort of idea there. Very interesting deck. I'm kind of excited to try this one. Scoia'tael, Scoia'tael, Scoia'tael. This is one of the clownier kind of decks we're using. So I've gone for Guerrilla Tactics double scenario because, well, I'm not right. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much more to explain than that, in all honesty. We're running double scenario. We're going Guerrilla Tactics despite the Milva nerf because nothing else kind of made sense. And that's kind of the whole game plan here is we have Feign Death and we have Mysteries of Lochfain. One wins one round, one wins the other. We have a ton of points from Harmony, a ton of points from just slamming a load of elves on the board. We have Poison as our removal, and things like Late Guardian and Percival can get quite tall. And then, of course, we have the payoff of the Great Oak as well. Now, in terms of how you want to play this, I need to play it myself to be sure, but I'm thinking direction is probably Feign Death round 1, jam down a load of elves, and then Mysteries of Lochfain is your follow-up in round 2, round 3. If you manage to play around without using either, then perfect. You can play both scenarios, and you're probably pretty happy. And yeah, it's probably very, very clowny. How good this will be, I don't really know. One card I just want to give a little shout out to is Half Elf Hunter. God bless that card, because he's an elf that also has Harmony, so he can trigger either scenarios. He's the only card in this deck that can trigger both scenarios, which is really, really nice. And he also spawns an Elven Deadeye, which for Venosial is pretty nice. Yeah, we have Venosial in here as a kind of, if we get a good damage Venosial, we're happy. If we don't, she puts 3 bodies on the board, and that's kind of great for a Great Oak. So, kind of a win-win. So yeah, very, very, very clowny, but it is what it is. It looks very fun, and I'll definitely enjoy playing this one. Or good old Skellige. We're running NECA Pirates. Now, this is a deck that in the last couple of days of the season gained a lot of popularity. I didn't end up playing it myself because I was going for top 500 and Skellige wasn't one of my top 4 factions, so I was trying to be a bit more efficient with my games and things like that, so I didn't get around to playing this. But it looks very interesting, so running it in Onslaught, so you're getting all that armor benefit you would get onto things like Terror of the Seas, Beyond, that kind of thing. And it's a typical kind of Golden NECA thing. You have a lot of thinning, you're getting, very efficient payoff from your Golden NECA in the form of playing a unit, a spell, and a artifact. It's very, very powerful, massive tempo swing, and we're thinning enough so that Magic Compass works. And Magic Compass can be, whatever you want it to be. You want a Fukusha, you've got a Fukusha. You want a Kambi to discard the last card because you're ahead. You play your Kambi. You want a Kraken Crate because your hand's full of pirates and ships. Then you play that. So obviously gives you a lot of flexibility there. And the sort of benefit of a deck like this is it really plays quite hard around all punishy kind of stuff, because obviously we have things like Gerd that are playing for 8, and obviously Sirinova is a great target for removal. But by and large, we're not going that tall. Using a tall removal on an 8 isn't that amazing. Obviously things like Vanilla Geralt kills a 9. We don't really get 9s. So it's a pretty interesting one. and it's definitely something I'm gonna give a try. But yeah, in terms of the game plan, in round one, you're trying to do typical sort of Skellige things. You're looking to thin really efficiently with your coral and your burner. You've also got raiding fleet to pull out one of the bronze ships. You have Darren, and so what you want to do with Darren is when you play it on the Ranger, you move a card from your deck to your graveyard. So you make sure Morkbag's in your deck, play Darren, Morkbag goes to the graveyard, comes out on your side, job's a good one. And then you have huge tempo plays in the form of Golden Necker. And obviously you can just basically kill anything your opponent plays in true of Skellige style. You'll set up your boats as engines. You've got a deranged Corsair in there. You've got locks. You've got your leader. You've got Terror of the Seas. You've got Beyond. Million one ways to remove stuff on your opponent's side. On top of a huge tempo play from Golden Necker and Magic Compass. So yeah, definitely an interesting deck, and I'm not surprised to see that this was performing incredibly well on ladder. To be honest, it does look like the kind of deck that would perform very, very well. So I'm kind of excited to try this one. Now, to round us out, we have Syndicate. And I'm sorry, don't hate me. I'm playing Necker, Poison, Sirinova nonsense. Because this deck, I mean, this deck's always going to have a place in my heart because I went for top 500. Patch just gone. And I mean, I was already in there, but then I kind of had a pretty nice run with line pockets, and I got this one all the way up to about 25, 20, 25, 30, that kind of region, in like less than 50 games, which is very, very good for a deck. And I just haven't had enough of playing this deck, in all honesty. There's a few minor variations on this that some people have used. You know, some people are going for like a Alyssa to try and do it twice. Some people are running like the Horson's Freak Show. You know, there's different variations. But I mean, I found this is the one that has performed by far the best for me. Having that Ring of Favor in there to just guarantee that round one win. On red coin means you can just pressure like mad, and then go for a short round and just go Golden Necker and a huge swarm. If not, you can, you know, take your long round if you want it. It basically guarantees you that round control. And it's a very interesting one. I really enjoy playing it because it's not a straightforward deck. You're not going to play this and it be very like binary. So something like Knights, for example, it's very obvious what you're doing with Knights. And you know, things like Elves, for example, they're all very intuitive. With this, there's a lot of decision making involved, and I lost plenty of games just by doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Not because the deck didn't have the points, just me being stupid. So there's definitely a sort of infinite skill ceiling to this deck, which I really, really like because I felt like I was getting better as I played it, if that makes sense. So it's always going to have a little place in my heart. Quick overview of what you're doing if you've never played this. I'm sure you'll have seen it on ladder there. Is you have tons of ways to poison your opponent's stuff, and Shady Vendor is looking to get Eventide Plunder, and you can kind of do that to set up your spenders because you don't really have any like cheap spenders. You have some very expensive ones in the form of Tunnel Drill and Horson's Freak Show, but you don't really have any bronze ones, so that kind of fixes that problem. And in terms of how you're going to really put away your sort of death blow round, whether that's round 2 or round 3, is, you know, you really want to set up an Azar, get a Tunnel Drill behind it, and start cleaning things up. You can also get your Roland down, start poisoning your own stuff, get Salamander Hideout down, and then sort of remove anything that's a concern to you. You know, you see a big unit, you can just poison it away, jobs are good one. And through the use of morale and having failed experiments on the board and having Salamander Hideout, it kind of plays around purifiers very, very nicely, because all of those give you the opportunity to apply 2 poisons in one turn, which is obviously a very, very big thing. Um, just doing a standard sort of 1 poison a turn gives your opponent the opportunity to, give something Veil, purify it, a defender down. If you can just chuck out 2 poisons in a round, you can just clean things up like you would if it was just a Karathi. So this deck can kind of run away with it very quickly if it isn't dealt with. If you are playing against this deck, what you want to do is you need to be putting the pressure on them and getting rid of their key pieces. So Roland and Tunnel Drill, I would say, are arguably the sort of center point of this deck. If Tunnel Drill is dealt with, lose a huge amount of points. If Roland's dealt with, there can sometimes be point generation issues. So they're kind of things you want to keep in mind. And that about wraps it up. Sorry we had to finish on such a, I guess, boring one out of the decks, but I think I've made enough interesting stuff for the other factions that you can allow me this one. I don't think I have too much more to say, surprisingly, beyond apologies for kind of disappearing for about a fortnight. Last season there was no real decks that I wanted to cover, really. Nothing that I was like, yeah, I think this is pretty cool, I want to do a video on this. So instead I just focused on playing some meta stuff and trying to finish in top 500, which I managed to do. I finished about 450th, so I mean, it worked out. So as usual, if you like the look of one of these decks, let me know. If you think I've done something stupid with them and should make a change, let me know. If you play it yourself and you have some suggestions, please let me know, because obviously I'll be playing these decks, and if you have some suggestions, I would happily take any input to improve them in any way. And finally, there will probably be a guide for these kind of decks coming over the next few weeks, as I play them and get some recording done and that kind of thing. So we'll leave it there. Enjoy the patch, and I will catch you in the next one.